Hello and welcome. It's David and Brent this week joining you March the 27th. Hard to believe March is over. It's been the longest month of the longest year, the longest decade. It seems like it's been fast and slow all at the same time. Brent, you're trying to get some field work done, got a little bit of moisture last night. So getting close to planting season, and with that, USDA's prospective planting report comes out Tuesday next week. We have 4 questions in the Forecast Network about that. The big ones, a lot of interest in 95 million acres of corn or higher, or less, or more than 84 million acres of soybeans here in the U.S. And Brent, where are you at on these forecasts?
So on the corn acres, let me just look here because I just had it up. So I'll give you the exact numbers. Prospective plans on corn, I'm at 70%, which is maybe, when you say it out loud, is maybe a little bit too aggressive. 95 million is a big number. So I think we set that at the right level. To me, it's not an easy question to answer. My general sense is that there's a couple things that are important to remember. One, we're forecasting prospective plans. That survey was done early March, so you have to kind of take yourself back to that. That was before the current situation kind of exploded on us. The other thing to think about is what the price relationships were at that time, and I think they're pretty favorable to corn. So I have a high degree of confidence that the corn is going to be the big winner in the prospective plans race. I think we'll probably go above 95 million acres, but I'm not. 75% is a pretty strong forecast, though.
Yeah, I'm at 75% as well.
So you're higher than I am. I'm at 70.
Yeah, the consensus is at about 48%, 49%. Interestingly, I kind of talked myself into 95 being too high earlier this week. And then, Brent, you shared the tweet from Farm Futures / Informa Economics, and they came in at 96.4, 96.5 million acres of corn. So that was an even bigger forecast, one of the biggest numbers I'd seen out there. So 95 is in play, and we'll just wait and see. And as you said, we actually have 2 sets of questions. We have questions about what the final planting number will be. That's at 97 million acres of corn. That's where we set that a long time ago, and we've obviously walked away from that quite a bit. But we have corn and wheat and cotton acreage in there as well. And so this is the March report, and of course we got to wait and see what happens between now and the end of June for the rest of those numbers. Brent, the other question we have is 94 million acres of soybeans. Do we get above that for the March report? I'm at a 65% chance. I had previously been somewhere around 45%. Where are you at on that one?
Yeah, so 84 million acres of soybeans. I'm at 70%.
More than 84. Yeah, more than 84.
I think we'll definitely go over that. If we don't, I think corn will be over 95 for sure. I mean, there's part of me that's sitting here going, well, it's going to be just short of 95 million. I probably should lower my corn forecast, but regardless, I think it's going to be a big number on the corn and a decent number on the beans as well, I think.
So the other 2 crops are wheat, total wheat acres. We put the line there at 45 million acres, and cotton at 13 million. Of course, those are in line with where plantings were last year. So if those come in below last year's acres, that means more corn and soybeans, and so combined acres. And so we got a lot of questions in there for you to look at. Hop on the ones that you think are most applicable and that you're following the most. Brett, the other one we were talking about earlier are some of these prices. We got really close to hitting the 350 or lower price on corn on the December futures contract. What was it, a week ago? We got to 358, I believe. So I ratcheted my forecast up to 75%, or excuse me, 85%. Now I'm bringing it back lower. It's been interesting to watch the consensus on that forecast is back in January, the consensus was about a 33% chance that we'd get below 10, excuse me, but get below 350 on the December 2020 corn futures. Now the consensus is up closer to 70%. So a big shift in expectations on the bottom side of corn.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. I'd ratcheted up, maybe not quite as much as you, and then dropped it a little bit. I still think we've got a pretty good chance. I'm at 66% that we go through 350. Um, on the other end, though, 50% chance above 425 still. So it's a crazy world right now, and I think what we're trying to debate is especially in corn. Corn is really hard. You got potential for more demand, probably from China, other countries. You've got potential for any kind of supply problems, which the government is probably not pricing, or I mean, the markets are probably not pricing in right now. But then on the other side, you've got the ethanol industry imploding. With ethanol plants closing, I saw, Brazilian plants kind of letting things go. I think we've had Valero in Nebraska close 2 plants. So it is super hard right now, I think, to figure out where the weight of all of it. But we do know that ethanol is the biggest line item in the balance sheet, that's specified out, bigger than exports, bigger than uh, um, seed use, all that kind of stuff. Feed's bigger, but it's not broken out. So you know that's the debate right now in my mind.
Yeah, it's probably worth us considering a couple questions about the usage on that corn side, especially around ethanol. Where does that ethanol story go? Because ethanol had already been struggling with this small refinery exemptions and the policies around the RFS, and now the blow to the oil markets is not helping at all. So it's sort of a double whammy here. And so really got to think about where the potential for ethanol is, and you know I think there's probably not, I wouldn't say zero probability, right? But the idea of how much ethanol will the U.S. make in the calendar year 2020, right? There's probably not a lot of upside from where we were last year. Probably hard to make the case that we're flat, and you could see a pretty significant potential for a reduction there, and that translates into bushels of corn, and that's going to be a headwind. So I think the question is what does that look like? Of course, watch the oil prices for that, because for a reference, it's hard to keep this in mind. Oil was above $50 a barrel before this whole thing with Saudi Arabia and Russia blew up. Now it's in the low 20s, and so it's painful to see what the corn and soybean markets have done, right? But the oil and the ethanol markets have just completely imploded. That's a 50+% decline. It's a bigger drop than what we've seen in most stock prices, right? And so it's been a huge change in that outlook for those businesses.
Yeah, and the oil industry didn't get their bailout in the Senate version of the CARES Act. So it's just there's no good news in that space right now, and I think if you don't appreciate, just have some awareness of how big that could be for the corn market, I think is important to get your head around.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge for all producers. So we're gonna the other thing to update is we had the question on the corona cases, more than 100,000 cases by April the 3rd. Of course, that's reported by CDC. Worldometer is a database that we've been tracking. I'm going to update that article, and we'll provide a link to that. So Worldometer yesterday said we had 85,000 cases. That's right. Remember, if we forecast it out a little bit, that's right in the band of those two estimates that we were looking at. Going to hit 100,000 cases over the weekend. What's really interesting is, and we'll recalibrate a question here, so you better update your forecast on that question. April 3rd, those forecasts, the weekend of April 3rd, If we continue at the trajectory, we're continuing on somewhere around the million in that neighborhood. So it's going to be another, another week of more cases being exposed. And we've talked about this a lot, right? We don't know how much of what we're seeing is the spread versus additional cases. And so keep your eye on that data.
Yeah, so we had 100,000 right by April 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll want to look at David's little article on that, because he's got that kind of tracked out, and it's been performing pretty well. So, or unfortunately.
Yeah, and so we've been, we're using CDC data as the official number for the scoring, but we're using that worldometer to help you build expectations out. So a little different data there, a little apples to oranges, but you can make some pretty good projections there. It's been, we're looking forward to some resolution on this one way or the other. So it's been it's hard to believe we're here, considering where the month started just 4 weeks ago. So.
Yeah.
Well,
I was reading something about fear. What are the fear, denial, bargaining, depression, all that kind of stuff. I think you go through every one of those in the course of a day, and it's
the grief cycle. Yeah, the phases of grief.
yeah, it's pretty wild. So keep your head up, everybody, and we'll get through it. We'll know. By Easter, it's going to be interesting to see where we're at. Things are either probably going to be a lot better or a lot worse.
So 6 million cases is where that data, if we continue that growth rate out by Easter, that's where that number will be. So 1 million next weekend, 6 million the weekend after. So it's, start looking for signs of improvement. So
I've got the under on that.
I got the under as well. But all right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll catch you next week. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. Appreciate it. Thanks.